Welcome to the Minutes to Win It podcast. I'm Jason Gilbo, JGilbo11. With me is Russell Clay at Russell J. Clay, breaking down tonight's 8-game slate and looking like a decent one. Every game's over 204, which is nice, and no real blowout concerns outside of Philly and Washington. That is 8.5 points, but it's still going to be on my radar tonight, and I think I'm going to treat it as just an in-play in cash and GPPs. What about you?
Yeah, it's a pretty unique sort of slate, and I mean, all of them are unique in their own way, but this is like a really high upside slate with a lot of options. So I think sort of the people that like to go contrarian, this is even more in play tonight just because there's really just a lot of good options. So my suggestion is if you're playing tournaments, kind of definitely hedge. Don't just go all in on one or two guys because there's just tons of options.
Yeah, if you're looking, it's kind of been different in the past where we've had maybe 2 to 3 West Coast games where it's a big 220 total, and then it really separates from, games that we wouldn't usually play, kind of like Toronto, Cleveland, Indiana, Charlotte. If that was on a slate where it featured the Thunder, Warriors, if it featured, Houston and Portland, you're kind of off the radar. But tonight it's in place, so it's kind of fun to see what you can work with and kind of make a true lineup from all the games tonight.
And I think if sort of you're not looking for that high risk tonight, just play cash because there's going to be some really high scores with all these sort of implied odds and stuff.
Yeah, I definitely think so too. And I think my personal strategy tonight is going to be balanced. One, just because there's not a lot of top options to really pay up for outside of the point guard plays. And punt plays, there's not any that I feel safe about. So it's a good slate to go balance, and I'm really in favor of it.
But hey, if you've been playing the past few days, then you know the pain of the last minute sort of injury bug with Derrick Rose. So
yes.
Who knows what value might open up out of nowhere.
But looking at teams, there's probably 2 teams that I'm not going to be playing much of, probably if any tonight, and that's going to be Charlotte and New York. I think you're on board as well.
Yeah. And I think there is some concern with this Washington-Philly matchup, but I'm not really fading them because of the blowout factor. I think those first 2 teams you mentioned are really the ones that you're kind of there's not much in terms of appealing options.
Yeah, you like Philly at home. They have a big 104 total tonight. Washington is not great defensively, so Philly should be able to keep things interesting,
right?
Or for the most part, for the most of the game there. So, I think if you're planning on Washington being a close game, you want them to get some 76ers exposure, and I think maybe a guy like Ish Smith could be a really sneaky play tonight, or guys down low like Noel and Okafor.
Right. Yeah, I think there's definitely some interesting potential with correlation in that game.
Yep. Looking at point guards tonight, and there are 2 injury concerns. One is Derrick Rose, questionable. He killed a lot of people's lineups last time. It was about 3 minutes after lock when he was like, you know what, I'm going to take it off tonight, not going to play. Yeah, he had 100% Etuan Moore exposure, and then he even played some Tony Snell, so it was pretty clear. But he's a game-time decision tonight. He did go through shoot-around, so I think he's more on the probable side, but there is no probable side. What am I talking about with Derrick Rose? Proceed with caution.
Who knows, yeah.
But Moore and Tony Snell both got a big bump with Rose out, and obviously Gasol played more of a point guard role, as we saw with 9 assists. He just missed the triple-double, so Gasol would be a really great play if Rose sat tonight, along with the backcourt with Snell and Moore.
Have you seen the picture of the kid sitting there with Derrick Rose, and he's just giving him the confused look face? If you haven't seen that, go look that up on Google, because that's how the fantasy community.
Wait, is it his kid? Is it his actual kid? Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah.
But yeah, so in terms of the top options tonight, I actually really like the top options at point guard tonight. I think Chris Paul, John Wall, and Rondo are all sort of in play for you. It's a little tougher to fit the top 2 in, but Rondo is pretty intriguing to me tonight.
Yeah, I really like the Rondo call just because that's the highest scoring game of the night. Expected to be close. Kings are expected to put up a bunch of points. And I think people who are just going to look at what Rondo's done against the Clippers this season hasn't been great. He's only averaged about 35 fantasy points per game and 3 against them. But Rondo is a triple-double upside guy. The guy can narrow in on 15-plus assists a game. And I love those guys that don't have to score real points to score fantasy points, and Rondo's one of those guys. And he's a bit cheaper. I mean, he's 1,000 off of Chris Paul there. So I do like Rondo. I think it's a great contrarian call tonight.
Yeah. Kyle Lowry, I guess the matchup is definitely better than sort of generally perceived because of Kyrie. He's kind of a defensive liability. But what do you think of that point guard matchup tonight?
I'm a big fan of it. I like both sides of it. And I think Lowry is going to be the higher scoring of the two. And I think Kyrie's a great GPP play tonight because, for one, he's still pretty cheap, especially on FanDuel. And I still think people are going to be paying down for Conley. Like, Conley's going to be the more popular play in all formats tonight. But he doesn't have that huge upside that the kind of next tier guys have, even in a matchup against the Lakers. So I like that Irving and Lowry plays tonight. I think both of them are solid. And even if you want to square them off against each other and hope they just go into a point guard duel.
Right. Kemba, not really as in play as he was for that stretch there. I think Al Jefferson coming back kind of slows things down a little bit, and kind of not caps his ceiling, but slightly shifts away from the crazy upside that he was having for that little stretch there.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, if you look, he's only 100 cheaper than Irving.
Right.
On DK there, and if you look at, he's only 500 less than Lowry. Those guys are the true upside plays. And I think, with, like you mentioned, his ceiling's a little bit capped right now, and that number can be, grabbed by Conley at a lower price. Right. So I think Kemba's just kind of the odd man out tonight.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at a cheaper play, I think Ish Smith is an intriguing one tonight if you plan on that game staying close. And Ish Smith's been really up and down, but he does have a decent upside. We have seen it before. Went off for 42 DK points last time out against Washington. He shot the ball 25 times that game. So,
right, and I think if you're throwing a John Wall lineup in there, you're going to need sort of that Philly team to stay in the game for that. For playing him to make sense. So you're looking at Noel, and we'll get into him later. But yeah, Ish Smith is an interesting play if you're sort of playing Gortat or playing Wall. So that's kind of how I'm looking at that one.
Yeah, especially because his price keeps dropping.
Yeah. Jordan Clarkson, he's been very consistent lately, and he's still relatively cheap. I do like him tonight in pretty much both formats.
Yeah, I think he's a great tournament. He's a great play in all formats, like you said. But as far as a low-owned guy, I think, you're looking at Clarkson as kind of being a pivot off of maybe Conley in that game. So it's pretty solid. And if you want to even go cheaper, I think Russell, more of a tournament play than a cash game guy, but definitely has shown the upside. Has seen a bit more consistent minutes, which is nice for those rookies out in LA, because we haven't seen that a lot this season.
Yeah, and you had mentioned Darren Collison as someone who'd shown a little bit of upside recently. He's pretty intriguing at his price tonight.
Yeah, I definitely like him. He's played over 30 minutes in the last 4 games, in the 3 since the break, 26, 22, and 28. Decent cash game option. Does have decent upside, as we've seen. We've seen him break into the 30s, 35 fantasy point range at times. And I like that total tonight. I think it's just a cheap way to get exposure to without going with the Clippers shooting guards, who will be really popular. I think Collison's going to be really overlooked.
Yeah, no, and I really like that range if you're paying down. I guess that's what we'd consider paying down tonight. But that Clarkson, Dennis Schroeder's a pretty solid option. He doesn't necessarily need minutes to provide that sort of nice floor for you. And even Moody, he's been struggling a little bit, but I don't hate him against Dallas tonight. So all those guys in that range are pretty intriguing to me, and I think they're all viable options,
Yeah, I like Schroeder. I think he's a great high upside GPP play, just because of his fantasy points per minute are just insane. So it's always nice to watch him go off and just come into a game for 20 minutes and go off for 35 fantasy points. But if you're looking on the mid situation to kind of be wary of, I guess it's Brandon Jennings.
Yeah.
I figure after back-to-back 25 minutes games, he's played 12 and 11. No, Scott Skiles is doing Scott Skiles things once again.
Yeah, and I mean individually, I'm not against Alfred Payton and Brendan Jennings from a fantasy point of view, but that's kind of one of those where you don't need to play them or anything, so just wait it out and kind of see how it figures itself out the next few games.
Yeah, and we may not even ever figure it out because Scott Skiles is just crazy.
Right.
Yeah, one more injury concern news. I guess Deron Williams is questionable, but he's planning on playing through a dislocated finger tonight. So, one, I'm going to be staying away from him just because of that injury. I don't know how he's going to be towards it. And also, if he does sit out, JJ Barea becomes a really, really nice option.
There you go. So, yeah, he's 3,900 on DraftKings. So, if you're really looking, I mean, chances are you're playing a more balanced lineup tonight, but if you aren't and you want to get one of those higher end options in, that's definitely someone to look at.
Yeah, because we've seen Barea bring the upside too, and a decent floor when Williams is sad this season. So I do like him, and it's a great matchup against Denver.
Right, but all formats, he'd be in play if he was sort of starting.
Yeah. Moving over to shooting guard, not a lot of injury concerns. Aflalo has a little Q next to his name, but he's probable just with a thigh bruise. Thigh bruise must be the new wave of injuries because we saw Oladipo have a thigh bruise. Suck it up. It's a bruise. I mean, come on. Give me a break.
That's kind of like dehydration, aka a hangover.
Yeah. It's just called the Manziel now. That's what they call it in parentheses.
But so for DeRozan tonight, I do like the Lowry sort of DeRozan stack again. Not as much as I did the other night, but I still think that's an intriguing type of option. But in terms of sort of how you want to play shooting guard tonight, I don't necessarily think he is the best option, just for value-wise and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I agree and disagree with you there, just because I think he is the same. He's definitely not a must-play tonight. I think I don't want to say that, but I mean, DeMar DeRozan's in a decent spot for a matchup. I mean, it's not a bad matchup against J.R. Smith. I mean, he shot the ball 48% 2 games against him. He plays big minutes. A big total like they have in Toronto tonight, the production's coming from that backcourt. So if he fits, I don't mind him tonight. But if he doesn't, I'm not going to worry about it because there are deeper options. But right. I agree with you for the most part.
Yeah, no, solid matchup. I like some of these lower options, I guess.
A little bit more. Yeah, price considered more than anything. But yeah, I'm with you there. And one guy who's kind of intriguing, who we ran down before the show, shooting guards pretty well, but we didn't talk about Bradley Beal. Seeing decent minutes and 34, 25, 29, 26. Still not great, but he's producing that 25 range. In a matchup like Philly, I think he could have that 30-plus upside. And not a bad price either.
Yeah, I looked at him, and I guess my question, I would like him if he was like 5,900. I would be really excited about him. 6,400 on DraftKings kind of caps his ceiling there. What's his price on FanDuel?
I want to say it's even cheaper because it usually is.
But yeah, either way, I think he does have 30-point upside tonight in that 76ers matchup. I'm just not. I just like. What is it?
5,700.
Yeah, so he's in play on FanDuel for sure. I just like Evan Fournier. He's been getting a ton of minutes lately, and he's going up against a relatively weak Knicks defense. So, I mean, 39, 43, 34, 42 are his minutes the last 4 games. So that's almost becoming a trend here. Yeah. He hasn't produced like crazy fantasy point outputs, but if he's getting that many minutes, the usage is pretty secure,
Yeah, I think Fournier is a great cash game play. I mean, I hate him in tournaments because he is bringing that 30 to 35 fantasy point upside from time to time. And I do enjoy that from a guy at his price. The price has come up a little bit, but I mean, averaging 33 minutes a game in the last 10, shooting 52%. I mean, you want to talk about consistency. It's been Fournier lately, so I do like him. And as you mentioned, the Knicks defense has slipped. They've allowed the 9th most fantasy points to opposing small forwards in the last 10 games. So even on the back-to-back, the Magic are in play a little bit, but Fournier and Gordon are probably the only 2 options I'm going to be playing from that team.
Right.
So, and as you mentioned, I think another guy, more so in tournaments, is Will Barton. His price has come down a little bit inconsistent. But the minutes have been there with Randy Foye out of town, so I do like him tonight. I like him to bounce back against Dallas.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of intriguing options in that Denver-Dallas game, and he's definitely one. I think he sort of had a down game the other day, but he's definitely a nice bounce back candidate.
Yeah, I mean, if you look, Dallas has allowed the 10th most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards this season. About the 3rd most 3-pointers made, and that's kind of where Barton can
get hot.
Yeah, so it's nice to see. And if you want to go cheaper at the same spot, Gary Harris has been playing monster minutes. He laid that dud when I played him against Sacramento, so I'm kind of irritated with him, but he definitely bounced back, and he has been more consistent on the most part over the last 10 games or so.
Yeah, that's just another intriguing option in that game. JJ Redick and Jamal Crawford, I think they're both in play tonight at their price. I kind of like both of their values. Crawford obviously has the more upside, but I think Redick brings intriguing cash game appeal.
Yeah, I think especially on DK where it's a pretty sizable difference, 51 and 5,700, so 600 difference there. FanDuel, it's kind of take your pick. It's just 100 off, so it's a great matchup. I mean, the Kings have struggled against shooting guards for about the last 5 years. So if you've been playing DFS, you've known to target shooting guards, so great cash games play. I don't think the upside's quite there. I think I'd rather pay for Barton or Fournier. You have that little extra.
And one other guy that I'm sort of looking at, Wesley Matthews, been playing some more minutes and he's just been playing a little bit better from a fantasy perspective lately, and he's pretty cheap on DraftKings tonight at 4,500. So that's someone I'm kind of looking at. Again, another player in that sort of a matchup where I think it's going to be more high scoring than not. So I think he has some intriguing upside.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing, Matthews' minutes have been pretty safe for the most part. You like him playing the 2 and the 3 against the Denver team. So I like Matthews at the price. And speaking of minutes, this is kind of just GPP punt play for the most part. Is Langston Galloway. Bigger minutes of late. He was playing well when Calderon was out, but 29 and 25 in the last 2 games. Obviously dropped a dud against Toronto, but that's a tougher matchup. But against Indy, went for 30 fantasy points and an easier matchup against an Orlando backcourt. So at that price, he's kind of worth of a punt if you're paying up at another spot.
YOLO.
Yeah, it's definitely just a play of toss him in there and hoping for the best because the matchup's not bad and the minutes have been there of late. But I'm not getting crazy.
Yeah. No, that's definitely interesting.
Etwan Moore, probably the last one we'll talk about here. A much better play on FanDuel with the pricing difference. He is just 4,600 there on FanDuel, and he's up there. He's 5,600 on. He's as much as Kobe. Etwan Moore is as much as Kobe Bryant right now. So that should say it all. I think if Rose sits, I don't mind more on DK, but for me, he's more of a FanDuel play tonight.
Yeah, and if Rose does sit, he's definitely intriguing on both sides. But the price difference there is pretty huge. So, yeah, FanDuel is definitely more the one you're looking at there.
Yeah. More of a small forward. No real injury concerns. It's just Tony Allen tonight. He's questionable. That's really meant more minutes for Lance Stevenson and Vince Carter, who are both more tournament punt plays than anything. I'm not trusting them in cash, even in the matchup against the Lakers, because they didn't come through the last time. So why are they going to come through this time? I'll focus on the starters at their price for Memphis. But if you're making a boogie lineup or something, or Paul or Walt, you're making a stud lineup, maybe a Stevenson or Carter's, fits in. I think Carter's been the more consistent play.
There is some appeal, but again, if you got lucky the other day, don't necessarily expect it again,
Yeah. So I mean, you rather take Barnes, if anything. He's the safer
Yeah.
option at small forward for the Memphis situation. But looking up top, LeBron's not in play for me tonight at all, and
Which
it's weird to say because
it, it
I'm ruling
really
him out.
it really is weird to say, but I mean, when can you remember him being so cheap and just not really an intriguing option? But yeah, so again, with roster construction tonight, I just think you might want to go a little more balanced than sort of fitting him in, unless some random injuries come in and open up some value. But yeah, as of now, I don't really see it.
Yeah, I mean, if Paul George didn't have the discount, maybe LeBron would be more in play for me tonight. But
Mhm.
because I can get Paul George for about 1,000 cheaper, who's I mean, you look at their averages over the last 10 games. George is averaging 23, 7, and 5. James is averaging 23, 7, and 7. So it's not a huge difference. Also, it's a better matchup against Charlotte for George. So I'm just going to take the discount and go with George as the top option tonight.
Yeah, George is the top option, and then that kind of makes things difficult to play Melo, who's a little bit cheaper, but at the same time, it's like I just think George has more upside and a safer floor. So I think he's the option, really, if you're looking to pay up at small forward tonight.
Yeah, anyone over 8K, it's looking like it's an easy George night.
Yeah.
Because small forward's pretty weak. I mean, you're looking. We both like Chandler Parsons in a rebound game.
Hmm.
He got into foul trouble against OKC. Five personal fouls kind of really capped his minutes there at 24. But I like this matchup against Denver. They've struggled against small forwards, so I'm looking Parsons in that mid range to kind of bounce back tonight.
Yeah, I love Parsons tonight. He actually does have some decent upside to get into sort of that 45, maybe not 50, but I think 45 is definitely in play today for fantasy points.
I'm not as optimistic as you. I think you've hit the Friday day jinxing a little early.
It's in play. I'm telling you, it's in play.
I think 30 to 35 is a little bit more in my projection for him tonight.
Oh no, it's definitely more likely that he doesn't hit that, but I think that's in play.
Okay. If all right, I'll give you a shout out next time because if he does go for over 40, I'll be kind of surprised about that. But we have seen it before. It's in play.
Yes.
Speaking who's not in play, Robert Covington. I just want to give a shout out because I hate this guy. I hate Robert Covington. It's a great matchup for him, but he's going to likely come out and produce 14 fantasy points in 23 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm not playing him.
Jeff Green is Jeff Green. No matter where he goes, he's just going to be that guy who either is on fire the entire night or just is awful. So, I mean, he does have 30-point fantasy upside, but, I mean, you could get 10 points also. So, just know that risk there. Bazemore, Otto Porter, these aren't really appealing options down here, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think Barnes is just the likely one I'm going with, and
right.
Maybe I'll take a shot with one of the Clippers small forwards there. Kind of
Wesley Johnson
or Jeff Green, because outside of that, I can't really see much. I mean, Jeremy Grant is kind of an in play for me if he sees over 25 minutes because he will play more time at the 3, which Washington struggled against.
Mm-hmm.
Did go for 26 fantasy points last time out, and when Covington's not playing well, it's Jeremy Grant who comes in and steps in and plays 25 to 30 minutes. So a low floor, but a kind of sneaky option at his price.
Definitely.
Dougie McBuckets.
Dude, he can dunk. He can dunk. Can you believe it?
We'll just leave him at a tournament play and move on. But he's been getting a little bit of consistent minutes off the bench.
He actually has been playing a lot better lately than sort of what I joked about him a few weeks ago. So I will give him his daps. But yeah, still reserve him for, I mean, I don't even know if I would play him in tournaments, but if you want to throw one in, I won't hate it.
Yeah, me too. Moving on to power forward, and you look at injuries. Nikola Mirotic is the only one who's been out. That's mean Bobby Portis has seen better minutes. 20 and 25 is where he's going to be most nights. Didn't produce. He kind of burned a lot of people, myself included, in the matchup against Washington. But Looking up top, I mean, depending on the site, it's DeMarcus Cousins, who's been phenomenal in the right matchups, obviously coming off of a down game against San Antonio, as you expect him to. But he hasn't been all that great in games against the Clippers this season. He's been kind of gets into foul trouble. He's averaged nearly 5 personal fouls per game against the Clippers in 3 games. Hasn't been great.
Right, and it just fills in that narrative of maybe tonight is a more balanced lineup type of night, you know?
Yeah, and you can never ignore the Cousins upside. He's a GPP play always, especially against the Clippers, who aren't really good against power forwards or centers, and they do rank 26th in rebounding. So with the total, you got to have one Cousins share tonight.
Yeah, and I'm kind of intrigued by sort of playing Cousins, making a Cousins DeAndre Jordan lineup. That's kind of intriguing to me, but at the same time, he's still expensive, you know. So even if he gets 50, even if Cousins gets like 50 points, that's really just hitting value, maybe even a little below that. So you got to get that 60 points if you play him.
Yeah, especially at that price. I mean, his price on FanDuel is crazy. So, nearly 11,000. That's just enters GPP range for me.
Right.
Especially when you can get guys like Jordan Gasol for nearly 2,000 cheaper. So it's more of a GPP play tonight. But there's a lot of power forwards I really like tonight, and I'll kick it off with the higher one is Paul Millsap. It was his birthday game the last time against Chicago, and he kind of just had a down game, but Atlanta did blow him out. He hardly played. He only played 27 minutes. So with his defensive upside and his rebounding and scoring, it's hard not to like him tonight for a nice rebound game.
Yeah, I like him in cash. And I do think he has some upside. As we saw a few days ago, Horford sort of stole the show. But, I mean, I think Millsap still has like 50-point fantasy upside, you know? It's still there. So he's a consistent option, and he's relatively cheap for sort of what you're getting with him. So I do like him overall. Yeah,
I think if you're comparing him to over 7K guys, he's my favorite, especially with Love's inconsistency of late. It is a nice matchup against Toronto. They don't really have anyone who can kind of defend him, which I like. And we've seen it both times because he's went 17-11 in 2 games against them. But it's not really on my radar.
Yeah, I think if I'm looking at that 7K range, and even Zach Randolph, even though he's 700 less, I still think like Millsap is the play of those 7K guys. Yeah, those two, Love and Randolph, I just don't necessarily see that high upside.
I like Randolph's price on FanDuel. I think it's a pretty significant difference, just because it is 6,500. It is cheaper than Love and Dirk Noel. And he's a nice 30-point guy, and I think that's what you're going to get from him. I don't think the upside's quite there. I'd rather go a little bit lower or pay up for guys who can deliver that 40 to 50-point upside. But Randolph's kind of a safe cash game option tonight.
Right.
The guy you pointed out to me before the show, and maybe it's just because he's old and I haven't really been playing him, but that's Dirk Nowitzki. Nice matchup against Denver's front court, and his minutes have been a lot better from what we've seen maybe last season and during the first half, because they tend to rest him a little bit more. But coming off some rest, gets a nice Denver front court who he should feast on. Great fantasy play tonight. I mean, great cash game option.
Yeah, and you probably, again, the upside isn't necessarily there, but I love him in cash tonight. I think you can really build a nice sort of safe lineup starting with him.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Denver, I mean, the matchup's great. They're a decent rebounding team. They've been much better than in the past, but Dirk's versatility, it's unmatched by anyone in that Denver front court.
And I think it'd be interesting to sort of team him with a high upside power forward play like Nerlens Noel or Aaron Gordon or something like that. So you still get that upside too, but you also have a really high floor. So that's the type of stuff I'm looking at with him. Yeah,
I think pairing Dirk, you look at Aaron Gordon, Randolph, Millsap, Noel, Dirk, kind of my core tonight for power forwards. I'm going to mix and match depending on what format I'm playing with those guys. I mean, Aaron Gordon he's extremely efficient. I mean, you look at rebounds. He finally didn't have a double-digit rebound last time against Golden State. Had just 8, but went for 19 real points, and that was nice. Shot 64% from the field, which his offensive game isn't usually his strongest, but his athleticism gives him a pretty safe floor.
It's pretty crazy to watch him. He's finally coming into his own in year 2, and this is no fluke. This is, barring an injury, this is going to consistently be how it is for the rest of the year.
Yeah, he's one of the Magic guys who is getting consistent minutes, and he's deserved it because he goes out there and he does everything. So, right. I really like him at his price tonight. A guy I think is kind of under the radar is Miles Turner. He's not getting the buzz around him that he's been getting when, like, we were dealing with Mahinmi being out. He's averaging 14 and 7 with 2 blocks per game in the last 10 games, and playing right around 30 minutes a game. So a decent usage for him as well, 21%, not bad for a rookie power forward there. And Charlotte ranks 24th in efficiency against opposing power forwards this season. So I'm a big fan of Turner at that price tag tonight.
Yeah, and someone in that similar price range is Kenneth Faried. He's kind of really random, but again, you're looking for that upside tonight, and he's only 5,800, so he's kind of like the yin to that yang.
He's I think if you're looking for a player below that, Faried definitely brings that upside, but his minutes are just so iffy. He's definitely just a GPP guy.
Yeah,
and we were looking before. If Pau Gasol does sit tonight, Gibson and Bobby Portis would become much more in play, but I think Gasol's more on the probable side. But they would both be in play at that price and pretty nice value tonight against an Atlanta front court that struggles. So, anyone else you're looking at, power forward?
I mean, I'm kind of intrigued by Marvin Williams, but you slapped my hand down when I mentioned him because of Miles Turner. So no, it is a tough matchup for him, but I don't hate him tonight at his price.
I guess we should. Porzingis. I kind of now it's like maybe a GPP guy. No, you're not on Porzingis.
Yeah.
It's a decent matchup.
It is. I don't hate it, but at the same time, I just like the options around him better.
Understandable. I mean, his floor is uncomfortably low at times, but he does have that upside, especially when he gets his blocks in. So, yeah. I'm fine. You know what? If you don't like Porzingis, you don't like Porzingis. Whatever.
No, it's the upside's there. I don't feel comfortable, but
yeah. Moving over to center tonight, we've already talked about Pau Gasol, but he would be one of the top options if he goes tonight. He was healthy last game. He nearly notched a triple-double in 31 minutes. So a great matchup against Atlanta, and I like both these centers tonight. And obviously, they're kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum there for pricing because you look at Horford, he's a little bit cheaper. So both have struggled against centers. They both rank in the bottom 10. I like both sides of that game.
Yeah, definitely. That's the matchup to sort of exploit if Gasol does go. I like both of those players.
Yeah. Look a little bit cheaper. Low DeAndre Jordan tonight. He did drop a dud against Denver, but other than that, he's been really consistent since Blake's been out. You're looking at pretty much an automatic not triple-double, Jesus. A double-double tonight. He's averaged over 40 against Sacramento in 2 games, so he's a safe play in all formats for me tonight as well.
Yeah, I think you can make a really strong cash game lineup tonight. And I mean, obviously there's a lot of good games, but yeah, starting with him and maybe a Dirk, I think you could really build some safe lineups that, I mean, could pretty much not guarantee you 280, but I think you'd be definitely right around there unless an injury happens.
Going cheaper, Polish Hammer, Marcin Gortat. He's my guy tonight. I love Gortat. I mean, I can't get away from that price tag on DK, and where I can roster 2 centers, where I can pair him up with a Jordan or Gasol, I love that tonight. I love the upside.
Yeah, I'm with you. And again, I don't even think the blowout sort of factor, even though it's not that big, like I don't think that affects him either way. I think even in 25 minutes, 30 minutes, like he's going to be fine. So yeah, he's safe and he's got a nice upside. So yeah, that's a great play.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of his. If you look, it's pretty clear Gasol, Jordan, Horford, Gortat are your top options.
Mm-hmm.
Not a big fan of Okafor or Valanciunas or Zaza tonight. I think if you're looking a little bit cheaper, Jokic is a great GPP play just because his upside is so phenomenal for the price. I mean, the guy can go for 40 fantasy points in like 18 minutes.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, you just look at him and his price is so nice compared to like they usually just bump everyone up, but he just has those bad games that keep his price suppressed a little bit. So yeah, no, he's always in play. He's always lurking.
Yeah, I mean, you'll just look at what he's done lately. 17 points, 0.75 points, 49, 43, and 28. So that should just he's got the upside, but the consistency's not always there, and his foul trouble scares me.
Yeah, I can confirm in that 3-game stretch where he scored like 25 total points, I definitely had him in at least 2 of those nights.
I guess I shouldn't skip over Zaza. I mean, if he plays a decent amount of minutes, he's been pretty safe, but the minutes haven't been there of late. But against Denver's front court,
he's not out of play.
Because of the other options.
Yeah, Gortat is kind of not right there, but it's close enough where you kind of just the upside for Gortat's so high.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm with you there, but I mean, I'm just kind of spouting off Pachulia because he's been good to me this season.
Mm-hmm.
So he deserves it. He deserves a shout out. I feel like it's been a while.
Does Jan Mahinmi excite you at all?
Nah. I don't mind the matchup. I don't mind the minutes he's been getting either. I think I'm going to be paying up at center.
Yeah.
So I think it's Jokic, for my value guy with upside, and then it's paying up elsewhere.
Yeah, makes sense.
So that's going to wrap things up here with the Minutes to Win It podcast. I'm Jason Gobo, Russell Clay. Check out dailyfantasycafe.com for all our great tools and content.